This is Jethro at No Coast Business Advisors here interviewing Perry Pirsch with Pirsch Legal Services. So if you guys want to participate in these in the future as we go along, feel free to hit us up on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, leave us questions, find me in the group, send me messages, emails, whatever you got to do to put your questions in front of the people we're interviewing. So Perry, tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Hi, first of all, thank you, Jethro. It's great to be here and be a part of this. I was truly honored that you would ask me to come in and talk a little bit about my experience in the practice of law and in small business. I've been practicing law now for just over 20 years, and in that time I've had extensive experience as a trial attorney, as an in-house counsel to both small business and to government agencies, and I've worked in estate planning, regulatory affairs, public affairs, and currently I am a minority partner in a non-emergency medical transportation business and in a government consulting and public affairs business as well.
That's a whole lot of stuff to have on your plate.
I've got a lot of balls in the air.
What was your life like before you went out on your own, started your own business?
The second half of the 20 years of my career practicing law before I started my own firm was with Berry Law Firm. And there I ran an appellate practice before the Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, assisting veterans in qualifying for disability compensation, and got a chance to argue in front of the Federal Circuit and win. Also there I continued my background in estate planning and in small business, whether it's business entity formation, contracts, civil litigation regarding business issues, and personnel employment law, things of that nature.
Okay. What made you decide to start your own business?
Well, I was at a tipping point. Generally speaking, usually employees are considered for partnership to become shareholders of a firm around 5 years. And Mr. Berry, who hired me and always treated me like a partner, told me when I started at Berry Law Firm that he was a benevolent big dictator, but he wasn't giving away shares of stock anymore. So after 10 years there, I started contemplating, I guess, whether or not I would have been better off creating my own firm and being more heavily involved in management. When somebody else is managing your career, they want to pigeonhole you into certain things that fit their business model, but their business model may not be the same things that make you happiest as far as what you would like to do with your career.
Okay. All right. So you decided to go out on your own, both for professional growth and, mental well-being?
Well, yeah, and to stay in the areas of practice that I enjoyed the most.
Okay. So how'd you make it happen? I mean, you made the decision, then how did you go out and make it happen?
Well, it's interesting. For me, I had helped create so many businesses prior to that point, and I really don't know how many it was, both in Virginia, District of Columbia, working for my sister, who's a tax, estate planning, and business attorney, also in Nebraska. So from a theoretical standpoint, I'd been assisting people for years, so it was really just putting theory to practice and filing on behalf of myself and jumping through these hoops that I had advised numerous people to do over a long time.
So a lot of people, once they've decided to start a business, and between there and making it happen, they usually let fear get involved. They usually let the fear of failure, the fear of what other people are going to think of them get involved. How did you get past the fear of no longer being an employee and being in charge of your own destiny and starting your stuff? How did you get past that moment of fear?
That is such a great question, and it is undoubtedly true. Every small business person looks at their bank account as they start getting towards the end of the month and start second guessing themselves, at least in initially and in lean months. And I did not want to borrow money. I didn't want to put myself further in debt. One of the people who was instrumental to me in giving me the courage to start my own firm is actually your business partner, Jeff Ducharme, who coached me. And Jeff had noted to me what loyal clients I had, and that my book of business, even though I didn't own stock in the prior law firm that I was in, but my book of business was a fairly substantial asset. And so one of the great things about my experience is that I'd been practicing law 20 years, and all of my business and estate planning clients really came with me at the start of my new practice.
Good.
So that was helpful, but again, it wasn't me alone who knew that. It was relying on the advice of friends, family, clients, and the fact that I had a background in business that kind of gave me the courage to go forward and not second guess myself.
Good. So you touched on this about the lean months and not wanting to go into debt any farther. How'd you get the funds to start your business? Did you, this is what I got and roll with it, or did you have to go out and do some bootstrapping?
Well, I had a 401k, and a portion of it was Roth. And so I could take funds out of the 401k, the Roth portion, without triggering any sort of taxable event. And that was helpful. And then I did that for the law practice. I also took out a loan to buy vehicles for the non-emergency medical transportation business, of which I'm a partner. And the business itself will be basically making the debt service payments on that.
Okay.
But we did use my credit, which is always a little bit scary.
Yeah. When something goes wrong, then it usually hurts.
But I want to tell your listeners that one thing about America is that we don't have debtor's prison here. I don't know if you read stories from before they being the British were putting prisoners on Australia, they were putting them in Georgia. It was a lot closer. And today we have bankruptcy proceedings, and the average millionaire, I bet, or at least I read, the average millionaire has been bankrupt twice.
Yep.
So it is a different mindset as an entrepreneur than it is as an employee. And you have to realize that it's okay to fail and rise out of your own ashes and try again. And nobody is going to put you in jail. God knows there are some people I would like to, but...
Well, I tend to agree with you. I know a lot of very successful people now that sometime in the last 10 or 15 years have had a bankruptcy.
Almost all of my successful small business clients almost went bankrupt at one point, or did go bankrupt, and then were able to recover and rise again out of it.
Yep.
And
as we just stare at each other.
well,
It's because I made a sound. Now, I heard you on your phone earlier. Sounds like you just hired your first employee.
I have a contract attorney working for me now who's a brilliant young woman, and so I'm excited to be able to provide more hours to my clients, because I'm at a point that my fiance will leave me if I keep working all night and weekends.
Well, that answered the next question, which was, what point did you decide to hire? The fiance is going to leave you is a good reason for that.
Hiring my contract attorney too, there's a number of things that you have to do as an attorney. Obviously, I consulted with the disciplinary counsel for the bar and discussed with them what sort of things I need to do to bring her into consultations with my clients and make sure that there's no conflict of interest and that I'm protecting my clients at all times. But one of the great things about using contract labor is, for me, it's largely no risk, because I designed my contract with her so that she would be paid after I was paid for my clients. And then in the event that my client didn't pay for any reason, then basically at that time we would have to decide, I guess, whether or not to go after the client, but I wouldn't be going out of pocket in my cost for her. And so I would advise all of your viewers to kind of do the same thing. Look for win-win strategies to try and help people out. I will tell you, the Department of Labor would probably say that there are too many people that are treated as independent contractors that are not actually independent contractors, that are employees and should have withholdings for them. But in this particular case, she has her own law license. She works out of whatever office she chooses to work out of. And she has her own tools and equipment. And so if you look at the control that I exercise over her, which is what the IRS and the Department of Labor look at, I am interested in her end product, just like any other person would be who hires a contractor, but I don't supervise her every moment and how she does business and whether she takes a lunch break.
Yep. And touching on that, I do know a lot of businesses, I've had conversations with a lot of business owners that do classify some of their employees as independent contractors. And my advice to them has always been, reach out, touch base with your legal advisor about whether or not what you're doing is going to hold up if push comes to shove with the government.
That's right. And when you terminate a contract relationship and they're unhappy, they're going to go to their attorney, who is going to look back over the relationship and try and decide if you could be liable for back Social Security payments and FICA withholdings and things like that. One of the most important things that you can do, as Jethro noted, is speak with an attorney before you bring somebody in as either a contractor or an employee. But also, to the extent they are a contractor, you should have an independent contractor agreement, and it should lay out basically why they fall into the category of an independent contractor under the law, and your expectations and their expectations. And that's one thing that a good attorney can help you with.
Absolutely. You started up your business. What was the biggest challenge you encountered starting your business and getting it going? If you could pin one thing as the biggest one that knocked you down in the process.
I will say, in a very short time of having my business quote up and running, I was getting far more calls from people wanting to contract with me and offer me services than from the clients themselves. And that was, I just wished I had a secretary, frankly, to answer the phone for me to screen some of the calls. But what I would tell people when they called me and they wanted to sign me up for long-term commitments for advertising or for online research or anything like that was that I was a new firm and that I was not signing any long-term agreements, and that if they wanted to make a pitch to me, depending upon availability, I would give them a reasonable amount of time if it was in my interest. One of the concerns that I have for small business people is that they get advice that they need to sign up right away for an office space, and they need to hire a receptionist, and they need to do all of these other things that so many businesses have, and you may get there, but when somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to start a catering business, and my friend told me I need an attorney and I need to create an LLC, my first question is, have you ever made money as a caterer? Is this something that maybe you could start out on weekends and evenings out of your own house and see if it seems like a viable business model before you start investing in a lease on a commercial kitchen, before you even pay your attorney a small amount just to do your initial filings with the Secretary of State and the Internal Revenue Service.
Yep.
So stay lean and avoid long-term commitments, and you can grow into them over time, but I think it's a mistake to borrow a great deal of money and assume debt with the idea that this is the way business has to be done.
Yep, and a lot of people do that. They try to go big and shiny Because everybody sees all these entrepreneurs and influencers and all this other stuff online, and they're showing you the life that they want to show you to get you to buy into them, when in reality, you know, it's a grind starting a small business, and you got to keep after it, and you got to keep it under control.
Yeah, there's also a big difference between borrowed money and spending it to create an appearance and actual net revenue at the end of the month that you can use for luxury items to create an appearance. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to do what you need to do to maintain a professional appearance, in my opinion. There may be other attorneys who disagree with me, but I'll give you an example. I have my home office in Ashland, Nebraska, which is absolutely wonderful, out on my acreage with my animal rescue, and that is really good for the soul of an attorney. I do have a satellite office in Omaha and Lincoln. In Lincoln, my satellite office is at Fuse Co-working. And so for a very nominal fee, I am there anytime I want on their Wi-Fi, drinking their coffee. I have access to conference rooms for 15 hours a month to give my clients reasonable expectations of privacy, but I don't have anywhere near the overhead that so many of the other firms in Lincoln have, and I can pass that savings on to my clients and give them better deals.
Good. So speaking of clients, how do you find your new ones?
I'm very fortunate in the sense that over half of my clients find me through referrals. And I think that's a combination of factors. My clients love me, which is great. And then also, for an attorney with over 20 years of experience, I'm fairly nominally priced. And so I try and give my clients real value for the money.
And the reason I snicker at that is because that's two questions where attorney has a soul and his clients love him. You don't find that very often.
If you don't believe me, there is an actual quote from one of my clients in the Lincoln Journal-Star that I am their friend attorney.
See? And he does have an animal rescue. I've been out there. It's fantastic.
That's where your money goes when you retain me.
So, since you've become, you said you're engaged now, you have a fiance.
Yes.
What effect did becoming a business owner have on your personal life?
Well, I am doing a lot of different hats that I wouldn't have necessarily done before. I mentioned that I was my own receptionist, and I do accounting and some other things, send out bills. That's new, but at the same time, I was always somebody that was working, a lot. And prior to opening my businesses too, I'd been in school for a very long time and have a couple of master's degrees and 39 hours towards a PhD. So I was accustomed to working 60, 80 hours a week on side projects and writing and classes and so forth.
Okay.
But I think your point is valid in the sense that if you are somebody who wants to work a traditional day from 8 to 5 with an hour off for lunch, entrepreneur is not for you. If you want guaranteed income and a cozy retirement, entrepreneur is not for you. Most of my clients who are entrepreneurs, it doesn't surprise me at all when they call me at 9 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night because they're still wrapping their head around an agreement or a issue with a client. And many of them, when I talk to them about their 401ks, they say, I borrowed everything I had years ago to get this business going. Now that having been said, some of them are worth millions of dollars, but it is a very different lifestyle working without a safety net.
Yep. When you fall, it hurts. What, as a business owner, what's your best piece of marketing advice? Do you have one? You do. What kind of marketing do you do as a law firm?
I have an online presence, and frankly, everybody does. It is a source of referrals for me. I haven't done any, quote, traditional marketing in the sense that I haven't used like the Yellow Pages, for example. I am a proud member of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce and of LIBA, and I am in a beta tips group. And what I have found most advantageous for me is people meet me, and I don't hard pressure sell anybody. I'm not trying to get anybody on a monthly retainer, but from time to time, we'll start discussing legal issues. And a lot of those times, they may even go and talk to other attorneys, hire other attorneys, and those people will often come back to me and say, everything you told me was right, and I want you to do this for me.
It's the best way to do it, word of mouth. That seems to be a recurring theme in each of our people we've interviewed is they're incredibly heavy referral and word of mouth based. They work their butts off many hours a week, and networking is the key to their business growth. So let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts of your business now. Those have been some good general questions, how you get into it, how you got started. So what type of business structure do you use and why?
Okay. Well, to quote Abraham Lincoln, a lawyer's time and advice are his stock in trade. So my clients pay me for my time and advice, and they do it through different models. I do take a contingent fee basis in some cases, but lawyers only do that when we think that victory is guaranteed and the only question is damages. I also do a flat fee-based model for people who are concerned about capping my time, and for routine matters such as business entity formation or estate planning, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, that type of thing, where I've done so many of them, I have a very good understanding going in of how much time is going to be consumed. But generally for things like litigation or agreements, employee matters, things of that nature, my clients pay for me on an hourly rate, and then the more time they buy from me, the better rate that I can give them when they buy in bulk.
When it comes to corporate structure, more along the lines of LLC, S Corp, C Corp, I believe attorneys have their own special designation of corporate entity, professional, what is that?
A PC.
There you go.
Right.
So is that the only type of corporate entity that is available to a law firm?
No, it's not. Actually, even though there is no designation for a PLLC or professional limited liability company in the state, you can be a professional limited liability company. It's just with the limited or the LLC letters after it. That is basically to put the public on notice that they're dealing with a limited liability entity.
Okay.
But a lawyer can create a professional corporation, a PC, or an LLC. And whether or PC or an LLC, a lawyer could elect to be taxed as an S corporation.
Okay.
So the default on a PC is that you are going to be taxed as a corporation unless you make your S election. The default on an LLC is going to be that you are taxed as an individual, or if you did it with other people, as a partnership, unless you made the election to be taxed as either a corporation or as an S corporation.
Okay. So what's the difference between the two entities?
Okay. I really like working with LLCs because they don't have all of the corporate formalities. From a historical standpoint, corporations have shareholders. The shareholders elect directors in an annual meeting. The directors elect officers in an annual meeting. The officers manage the day-to-day affairs. And there's a lot of formality with it and a lot of meeting minutes to be kept. An LLC does not have that much formality, and usually even if you have partners, you can create an LLC and set up the initial operating agreement, and yet at the same time, you can elect to be taxed as an S corporation or a C corporation. So you have all the advantages of whatever tax structure you want, but you don't have the same corporate formalities.
Okay. In your opinion, because you've dealt with a lot of businesses that start up their business, form a new business, or getting into a business with somebody, what do you think is the one biggest legal question they should ask but don't know to?
One of the things that I have counseled my clients many times over the years is to assume that you and your business partners are not going to get along in the future. Businesses, to some extent, can be like marriages. Success has many fathers, failure is an orphan. And when things go bad, a lot of times fingers start getting pointed, people blame each other. And it's not too late to negotiate a truce and an exit with dignity, but it's always better to have those tough conversations ahead of time. And so anytime somebody comes to me in starry eyes and they say to me, this has been my good friend for a number of years, and he and I are going to make each other rich, and we got this great new business opportunity, a lot of times the first thing out of my mouth is, one of you can be my client, but not both of you, because it's possible that you'll have a conflict of interest, or in the alternative, maybe the entity itself can be my client, but neither of you personally can be. And as much as you guys plan on getting rich right now, the most important thing that you can do is to brainstorm for catastrophic events. So try and imagine what's going to happen if one of you is getting a divorce and your wife is claiming an interest in the business as part of the divorce. What happens if one of you is going insane? What happens if one of you is in an auto accident and can't come to work anymore? What happens if one of you dies? What happens if 6 months from now you hate each other? And by having these tough conversations ahead of time and contemplating them and putting it into a written agreement, I think you avoid heartache.
That's a very good answer. And we've heard parts of that before, because that seems to be a theme that comes up from one business owner after another, is you should absolutely plan for the worst case. So you said you're a minority owner in a couple of businesses. What's your opinion on partners?
The truth is that there are not enough hours in the day to get wealthy just on your time, or at least if there's a business model for that, I haven't found it. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, the billionaires in the United States are with those billion-dollar business interests because they were not afraid to delegate to good people who took their model and took it to a higher level. And so business partners, employees, contractors, all of these people are wonderful. And when you have a business, you need to focus on what you are good at and what you enjoy. And to the extent that you can delegate everything else, you need to find a way to delegate it, because otherwise you are wasting time and you are wasting money.
Yep, if it's cheaper to pay someone else to do it to free you up, you should absolutely do it.
Well, and maybe even if it's more expensive, if they are better at it than you.
Yes, yeah. Time or happiness. So the one I've been hitting everybody up with is next year's an election year.
Yes.
Do you think that's going to have an impact on your business? Just the fact, not which political party is going to win, none of the rest of that stuff, just the fact that it's an election year and it's shaping up to be an ugly one. Do you think that kind of atmosphere is going to have an effect on your business next year? Well,
I think probably the government and public affairs consulting business, I would like to think it would, and that it will help. The law practice, probably not. A law practice may be similar to a bar in the sense that they may be somewhat recession-proof. And I say that because supposedly in good times people want to drink alcohol, and in bad times they want to drink alcohol to forget. In good times, people want to start businesses. In bad times, people who were laid off and think, you know what am I waiting for? Now is the time for me to move forward, are going to start businesses. And so I can't say, with just over a year and a half under my belt, how it will impact me directly here in Nebraska, where we tend to not have really high highs or low lows compared to some other places. Years ago, I was working in Washington, D.C. when September 11th happened, and I will tell you that that hurt us. I was working for my sister's law firm at the time, and estate planning and a lot of things that were discretionary sales after that seemed to tighten up considerably.
Has kind of been my experience. Is discretionary earnings people tend to just tighten down during an election year, and like you said, when it's a bad economic time, people getting laid off. As a business broker, we tend to see an increase in sales because he's absolutely right. People get laid off, they get tired of working for corporations for the suit and ties, and they decide to go out on their own. So most of them don't want to start a business, so they acquire one. So I absolutely understand that. You've been in it for a year and a half. What's your plan for the future of your business?
There's a joke that a lawyer spends his second 5 years of practice trying to get rid of the clients he made in the first 5 years of practice. I have really been fortunate in about the year and a half that I've been open. I guess it's not even been that long, that I have some really great clients and I get some really good referrals. And so my hope in the future, honestly, is to turn more work down, at least myself, and to spend more time with my fiance and more time with my rescue animals. As a practical matter, I doubt that will happen. I think just because of my personality and the fact that I like helping people, and I can't stand the thought of turning anybody away if I can help them, that I'll just burn myself out. And then I have a good friend and client who has a resort in Honduras, so at some point I'm going to go live on a beach.
So you can keep it basically a sole practitioner plus a couple of maybe small add-ons, or you have no plans of growing it to a bigger entity?
Well, I've been consulting with fellow practitioners since my inception, and I have discussed with other attorneys that are sole practitioners forming a partnership, like a super group.
Mm-hmm.
What was that with Ted Nugent? I don't know, or the Traveling Wilburys. Anyway, I can't say what the future holds for me. I try and assess each opportunity independently. I have no aversion to working with partners. But one of the great things about free trade is that no trade ever takes place unless both people perceive that it's to their advantage.
Okay.
And so I like to work with other attorneys to create win-win strategies so that we can all be in a position where